Whiskey for the Ages is not sponsored or endorsed for any product or program mentioned in this show and receive no remuneration from their creators.
Hello everybody, and a warm welcome back to our Whiskey for the Ages podcast subscribers. I'm your host, Brian Dawson. Tonight, Hannah's here on my left.
Big thank you to those of you who are tuning in for the first time with us.
And Laura is here on my right.
Hi guys, I hope that you enjoy the show and consider subscribing to the podcast as well.
Subscribing really helps us out, and it will help you out as well. Subscribers get notified first when new episodes are uploaded, and subscribers help move us up in Google rankings. Higher rankings makes it easier to find our show, more listeners will drive future content, and more exposure allows expansion to YouTube, something really we want to do. And don't worry, we never spam subscribers with unwanted solicitation.
Tonight we're doing a special how-to episode similar to what we did last series with rye. We're going to be sharing what we've learned about wheat whiskeys and wheated bourbons.
I'm sure everyone has heard it said, or maybe you've even said it yourself. Wheat whiskeys are soft.
But is it really true? Well, we're going to find that out. We have a great selection of whiskeys that we're going to try, and we also have a slice of some wheat bread that I baked recently.
Just today.
Yeah.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Now, as we did for our rye show, we'll be focusing on American whiskey, but our discussion could apply to any whiskeys with wheat in their makeup. But first things first, let's introduce our opening pour. So I've poured for us some Bernheim original wheat whiskey. Now it's a straight wheat whiskey. It comes from Kentucky. Distillery is Heaven Hill, Bernheim Distillery, DSP KY01, first distillery there. Mash bill 37% corn, 51% wheat, and 12% malted barley. Barrel char number 3 on this guy. We don't have an entry proof. My guess it's probably 125, like a lot of Heaven Hill's product. 7 years old, so it's stated right on the bottle. 45 ABV or 90 proof with an MSRP of about $30. Fair price around the country is anywhere from $31 to $36. We paid $27 for this back about a year ago. Comes bottle size 750 milliliters. Now what's interesting about this one, Bernheim Original Wheat Whiskey was first introduced back in 2005, and at the time it was the only wheat whiskey in regular release around the world. So they get to say they were first. Now there's lots of other people that are out there doing it right now, but they get to say they were first. So girls, what are you sensing on the nose?
I get cherries. Cherries and wheat bread. If I had to lay down a specific cherry flavor, say maraschino or Bing cherries.
I get that cherry note as well. Really fresh.
Yeah, it's there. The Heaven Hill funk is also there too. There's a little bit of spice. Not heavy though. It's an approachable spice here, especially coming in at, what did we say the proof was? 90 proof. So really approachable. It's almost more of a white pepper than it is a black pepper, I'd say.
And I don't get any wood or any smoke of any sort here.
No.
I'd like to say I get some cinnamon.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of cinnamon, like the ones, I don't even know if it's the real flavor or the artificial one? Like the artificial flavor that you would find in like those.
Maybe cinnamon sugar.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's an autumnal smell, I think.
Yeah,
I'd
I'm really
have to say.
intrigued by it, so yeah.
So, what does it mean to be a wheat whiskey or a wheated bourbon? Well, a wheat whiskey must have a mash bill of at least 51% wheat. This Bernheim we're drinking, 51% wheat. The second ingredient could be corn. Now, it's always going to be less than the 51%. Of course, in this case, we're sitting at 37% corn. The wheat in a normal bourbon typically comes in around 15 to 20%. So this is quite a bit more.
Yeah.
More than double what's normal. And then there are some out there that are 4-grain whiskeys. 4-grain will have corn, rye, wheat, and barley. They're often going to be a bourbon, but typically the rye and wheat amounts will be about the same, or they'll be quite balanced. So I'm going to go back to this original wheat whiskey from Bernheim. Have you tasted it yet? What are you getting? What are you tasting?
I really enjoy this palate. I can say that very definitively. The spice is still there that I picked up from the nose, but it's again still very approachable. The wheat element's there. I really love how this blooms on the palate. Everything just pops right away. I don't know so much if I would say that it's soft, mostly because the finish here is actually really strong for me. There's an effervescence coming in on the finish. Even though the flavors may not be particularly complex beyond some cherry, beyond the wheat and the white pepper, I'm sure there's other stuff there too, but we're just kind of doing a hit and run sort of situation with this guy. Those are the highlights, and I love how this one's going.
You're right, it's not complex, but it seems to me like it's warmer than a 90 proof should be. And that's got to be a spice element.
Yeah.
Laurie, what are you picking up any spices here?
I really liked what you said earlier about the autumnal sort of theme going on here, because I would agree. There's some warm spices in here. I will say
Maybe a little clove?
Maybe.
Yeah, or nutmeg.
Clove, nutmeg. It'd be the kind of whiskey that I'd want to enjoy while reading a book.
Oh, wow.
On a autumn day.
You're stealing my...
I'm sorry.
That's my turf.
I know, but I can't deny that there's an intriguing element in this. It's like 90 degrees outside, and I want cooler weather, and autumn is my favorite season of all time. So I'm just really wanting autumn, and this is, I think, a very, very comforting whiskey for me to drink. And I would say that there's also that cherry element, but I'm more considering getting like the warmer spices with this. So,
Well, Hannah, you said you wouldn't necessarily say it's soft. So define soft. What does it mean? Palates, perception.
I think a lot of it can come down to mouthfeel and the actual flavors that are being evoked on the palate. When I think of a soft whiskey, I'm thinking of something that's probably a little bit more on the oily side of things, silky, typically of a lower proof point. It's hard to get something that's not aggressive, which I would say is obviously the antithesis of soft. You can't do soft if it's a particularly high proof, in my opinion. And other soft flavors, usually I would put in wheat being one of those flavors that come in, but sometimes nuts, sometimes wood, depending on the level of char that I'm getting out of it. Sometimes you can get into the sugary spice things or the bread element with, vanillas or honey or things like that. Those are flavors that I typically associate with soft.
Okay, that makes sense.
What about you?
I think we're describing the absence of aggression.
Yes.
You said that. And to casual drinkers or people that are new to bourbons or whiskeys, it's got to be easy to drink. It's not going to burn the throat.
Right.
And I think wheat tends to lend itself to that. A little bit of spice, low heat, like you said, creamy mouthfeel, kind of layered in sweetnesses. I think that makes wheat maybe a beginner-friendly whiskey.
I think that's something we'll definitely be tackling here in this episode, although we did say that this Bernheim doesn't taste like it's a 90 proof whiskey. It tastes a little toastier than that.
And it feels a little toastier too. I would say that my perceptions of soft are closely linked to what both of you are saying. It is a mouthfeel. It is, to me, more of a blend of flavors than it is each flavor having its own spotlight. So I think it's like a muted blendness going on. Like if I were trying to fit into an ensemble while I'm playing, I wouldn't be shouting, "Hey, I'm a clarinet soloist, hear me." I'd be more in the textures, creating the tone colors of this. So I think that soft really pertains to how it feels in the mouth. It's not in your face. It's not shouting, "Look at me, I am here." It's more of a comfort, inviting sort of atmosphere.
Okay. Well, before we move on to our second pour, any final thoughts on Bernheim?
I'm having it with some bread here. And I would say that it's more just a marriage of flavors rather than like, I'm going to have my bread that tastes different with this. So I think both of them just go really, really well together. It blends well, which is kind of going like what I was saying with the solo versus blending in the ensemble.
And I think the bread on this one actually evokes what we were already saying about it tasting warmer than 90 proof. Because I have a bite of our wheat bread here, and then I go back to the Bernheim, and it's elevated even more as far as heat goes, and that twinge of aggression that wasn't expecting, but am more than happy to have here at the table. I really love this. I really love this.
I do too. It's a really, really good one.
Easy sipper.
This might be the first time either of you have had this one too, I think.
I've had it before, but it's been a very long time.
I can't recall, so maybe.
So our second sample, everybody in the world should know about this one. This is Maker's Mark Bourbon. It's obviously a wheated bourbon out of Laredo, Kentucky. Maker's Mark Distillery, DSP KY44. Our mash bill here, keep in mind it's a bourbon, 70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat, and 14% malt barley.
Why do they call it soft red winter wheat instead of just straight wheat?
It's grown typically in warmer climates, and it is a winter wheat. It isn't coming from a summer harvest.
It's a different species.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
Barrel char is unpublished. It's likely a number 3, like many of Maker's products. Barrel entry proof for Maker's, a little lower than what we might consider normal, at 110 proof. It does not have an age statement. Just like the Bernheim, we're sitting at 45% ABV or 90 proof. And our MSRP on it here just recently, I paid $27.95. Nationwide, it's going to be in that $25 to $32 price range. Bottle size is that 750 milliliters. What are you guys getting on the nose?
I think I'm going to like this one a lot. And the reason why I say that is, while the Bernheim is very fruity, this one's kind of more sugary to me. I'm getting a lot of like a marshmallow meringue element. I think that this would go really, really well with the meringue of a lemon meringue pie, because you don't have like the strong lemony acid flavor in the meringue. You just have like a little bit of sweetness and then a little tiny bit of that brightness. That's what I'm getting from this, is that kind of, I'm sweet, but I'm bright. And it's not in your face.
This smells soft. It smells really, really soft. I get a little bit of cherry on here, but I also get a lot of baking elements. There's some brown sugar, there's some graham cracker crust, little bit of oak, not particularly charred though. This is an old friend of mine. I know this bottle very well, and I've always really loved this bottle quite a lot, just because it's one of the most heavily marketed products out there.
Red wax seal.
Red wax seal, the hand dipped by each individual and making it super special that way. Hey, if it works, it works. The product still speaks for itself.
I would say in comparison with the Bernheim, it's a darker bourbon. It's a darker whiskey. I'm getting those elements that you're talking about, the little bit of oak, maybe even a little bit of char here. But I'm definitely getting brown sugar. And I'm not getting so much on the fruit side, but I am getting some herbal notes. More earthy, if you will.
Yeah.
I can understand that. We cook a lot, this family does. We have recipes where we involve thyme, and there's a floral element to thyme. I would say that there's just a dash of that in this.
Maybe.
In the taste. Not so much in the smell.
We're not there yet, cheater.
I'm sorry, I just moved fast. Catch
All right.
up.
Okay. Let's get into this a little bit more. Mash bill mechanics. What wheat really does. Wheat isn't just a filler. It has a distinct fingerprint in the mash bill. It hits the front palate a little harder, I think, than a rye does, and it typically lacks spice or a roastiness, if you will. From a scientific perspective, wheat has less lignin and tannin than rye or barley, making it for a lighter barrel interaction. Wheat lacks sharp phenols and spice oils. Sugars in the wheat can improve the mouthfeel. You touched on that earlier, Hannah, how it makes it feel soft in that front palate. Wheat doesn't push the perception of ethanol or the alcohol as much, which contributes to the belief that it's a smoother liquid. Wheat contributes sweet creaminess and a milder profile. It's really easy to hold in your mouth. I mean, I'm obviously talking right now. I don't have any in my mouth, but it's pretty easy to hold. It's less assertive than rye, and I think it just is an easy drinking product. Wheat can carry barrel flavors a little more clearly. In other words, it allows the oak or caramel or vanilla that comes from the barrel to shine through, and it's often associated with descriptors like bready, or pastry-like.
With my graham cracker crust.
Exactly. Doughy. Or maybe even soft honey, like you had mentioned, Laura.
Yeah.
I mean, we picked up on that even before we were prompted to pick up on it. Wheat whiskey and wheated bourbon can feel accessible to those new drinkers, as I said earlier. And in wheated bourbons, the corn's sweetness and the wheat's gentleness helps to create that soft, rich profile. Now, let's shift to some behind-the-scenes mechanics. Wheat's influence on fermentation and distillation. It behaves differently during whiskey production. Wheat is high in starch and low on the husk. In other words, it doesn't have a lot of excess structure in the body, I guess. In general, wheat requires a little more finesse than rye or corn. Requires a little more temperature control. You can't have it too hot, can't have it too cold. Wheat mash is sticky and can become gummy, so the equipment gets a little higher on the maintenance side.
Lots of clogging can happen.
Lots of clogging can happen. Wheat sugars ferment much more cleanly. They produce fewer congeners than rye. Congeners are chemical compounds which are responsible for producing aromas and flavor created during the fermentation and distilling and aging, which tends to result in a lighter new make spirit. In addition, cleaner sugars produce fewer fusel alcohols, which means less harshness in the distillate. Because of this, distillers often strip wheat-heavy mash bills a little more gently. It helps preserve the mouthfeel over the sharp alcohol notes. So from the very beginning, wheat leans towards gentleness.
Could environment have an effect on that as well? Wheat is kind of ubiquitous around the entire world. I don't know if rye is just like that or if rye depends on a different sort of climate.
Ubiquitous is a good word for it because it is absolutely everywhere and used in absolutely everything. I think that it can depend on a variety of things, environment being one, the species of wheat being another. This Makers has the soft red winter wheat instead of, another traditional wheat that maybe other distilleries don't want to put a name to. I think another big thing, which we haven't touched on, and I don't know if we'll go into a full thing on it in this episode, is the yeast as well, and the interactions that it's having with the grain.
Yeah.
I think when we were having Bernheim and I was talking about the Heaven Hill Funk, Heaven Hill products traditionally have a little bit more punch and swagger to them than other distilleries do.
That's very true.
And that kind of thing is going to find its way into the glass in some way, shape, or form. They'll make it happen. That's their signature. Even if it is a wheat whiskey, which is supposed to be gentle.
While we're not really going to go into yeast, yeast is such a proprietary item.
Yeah,
And that's
it's hard
what's giving Heaven Hill's products their funk.
Yeah.
It's going to give this, what we're drinking, this Maker's Mark, its funk. The yeast that goes into a wild turkey or the yeast that goes into a Jim Beam, they're all going to be different.
Yeah, and that's something that they don't really disclose. That's the secret part of the secret recipe.
So here's a couple of questions. Can you think of any wheated whiskeys that you've had which felt watery? Or too light?
Oh, I'm sure I could.
It's hard for me to think of any of them because whenever I go for something whiskey-like, I usually ask you guys, well, I really want something sweet. Can
That's
you
true.
recommend something sweet?
And inevitably we pull out a Maker's Mark.
And inevitably
Yeah.
you guys pull out a Maker's Mark, and I'm really, really fond of that. In terms of like whiskeys being watery, I'm sure we've had a couple of them even in this season where
Well-
I've said the word watery.
Well, that Wilderness Trail that we had just
Yeah.
in the previous episode, I think we all remarked on that one feeling a little bit on the watery side.
And that was a wheated
Yeah.
whiskey.
And that was a wheated whiskey.
And then if we go back and think of whatever episode it was where you did the expose on dry flight distilling,
Yeah.
every one we had there, with the exception of the 101 bourbon, was a wheated whiskey.
Yes.
They all tended to feel soft in the mouth.
But I don't think I would say any of those were necessarily watery.
Very
And
true.
I think that there are plenty of other whiskeys, regardless of if they are wheated, have that watery feel. I mean, it's really what is the process in making them? Like what is involved in that process? Because some of them might be really, really viscous, really, really thick, and perhaps oily on the tongue. Whereas other ones might be a little bit more watery. I find if I have a very, very strong, high proof Elijah Craig, I'm not so focused on like the feeling of it so much as like, oh, there's ethanol and it's trying to kill me. But if I do get a chance, I'm thinking, well, I guess this is kind of on the watery feel side of it, even though it's trying to kill me with ethanol. So, I don't know. I think with this, it'd be naive to say that wheated whiskeys are always going to have this kind of mouthfeel.
Let's talk about mouthfeel a little bit with this Maker's Mark we're having.
It's nice.
It's kind of creamy.
It is.
I really like it. I love the feeling of it.
Compared to the nose that we were getting earlier. I'm going to double down on that darkness.
Yeah.
I really can sense the depth of the spice. When I say depth, I'm getting more of that cloviness, that nutmegginess, that black pepper, but it's all backed with brown sugar.
And cherry. I get a lot of cherry, but I always tend to find cherry in a Maker's product.
I get so much of that meringue element that I was talking about. Just like that kind of marshmallowy meringue sort of taste. It's sugary. I will say that it's also woody. I do get a lot of the oak. And
Absolutely.
I do get baking elements. I'm reminded of the time when I tried making pumpkin pie for the first time and I had to start over completely all my crust because my crust was too thick. I had a whole 9-inch diameter crust that I didn't want to throw away, so I just kind of ate it. And I'm reminded of that. It was a very good crust. It was just too thick. So there's a lot of baking elements in this, and I like it.
What I like about this Makers, aside from the fact it was only $28,
Oh, that's nice.
it's got a warmness to it. Not hot, it's warm.
Yeah.
It's warm in the throat, it fades away, and it's a nice fade.
The Bernheim feels stronger than this.
Most
It
definitely.
does.
Most definitely. And that very well could be that Heaven Hill yeast.
Playing
The
a part.
and maybe it's even the higher barrel entry proof. We don't know that. They're not telling us what it is, but we know this is going into the barrel at 110. What do you guys think on the finish? Any notes to pull out?
I think it's a relatively short finish aside from that lingering warmth. I really love this one. I think that it's a really great value product, and I think more people should give it the time that it's due.
So many people walk by Maker's Mark because that's the one everybody sees. You're right. Pick up a bottle.
Pick up a bottle.
What's the worst thing that could happen? You might enjoy it.
Yeah, and you spent $30. It's not too bad. And it really does lend itself into getting into the rest of their lineup. And they have a really impressive lineup.
It's like what you said. If something works, why would you change it?
Yeah, it works.
They
It
have
works.
a recipe that's timeless.
Exactly. They've been doing it for a while. Well, let's go on to our third sample. And frankly, this is one that I have been looking forward to for quite some time. Penelope Wheated Bourbon.
Have we had this one?
Nope, brand new for all of us. I've never had it before. Originally founded in 2018. They got their distillery going. They did not have distillate. They were buying from MGP. So this distillate is an MGP product, which a lot of new distillers start to do. They buy from other sources. They would be called a non-distilling producer. Brand and ownership here, originally founded in 2018, and it was acquired by MGP back in 2023, just a couple of years ago, to bring sourcing and branding fully back in-house. Made in Lawrenceburg, Indiana at the Ross and Squibb Distillery, DSBIN 15016. The mash bill here, touched on it a little bit earlier, this is a 4-grain, 74% corn, heavy on the corn, 16% wheat, 7% rye, and just 3% malt barley. Barrel char was a number 4 on the staves, and interestingly, on the heads of the barrels, just a number 2, kind of light charring.
That's a specification we don't get very often.
I don't think I've ever seen it before.
I don't think, no, that's new.
Its barrel entry proof is unpublished. However, MGP typically, the liquid enters barrels at about 125 proof for their bourbons. This being a wheated bourbon, it may be different, but I'm thinking it's probably right at the 125. No age statement here, however, the website states between 4 and 6 years. This one's going to have a little bit more proof on it, 47.5% ABV or 95 proof. MSRP around the country, fair price is going to be right around $40 to $45. I think availability might bump that up from time to time. Nationwide market price, doing little searches on the internet, $35 to $50. Price paid here, just last week, I picked it up for $44.95 here in Idaho. The bottle size, 750 milliliters. So girls, what are you sensing on the nose while I've been talking?
Have you been having trouble getting anything?
What I think is the most intriguing thing about it is that it wants to sting me on the nose.
Really?
It's only 95 proof, which is more than the previous two we've had, but that's by no means a high proof bourbon. That's a really manageable and approachable proof in my opinion. And this one wants to sting. So it's a little bit tricky to come in with too many flavors.
Putting your nose deep into the glass and inhaling with your mouth slightly open actually helps bring out some flavors. I'm getting a lot of herbal notes. herbal like green, like dried corn, maybe even dried grasses.
A little bit of that. I'm getting some really deep and dark flavors though too. There's some allspice in here. There's some fruit leather in here.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
are really dark fruits, like a blackberry or prunes, something along those lines. But there's still a pastry element to this, in my opinion. It's
Graham cracker?
Yeah, graham cracker. I think you could even make a case. Alora's looking at me with such a look of disdain. But almost, like if you eat a fig Newton and that little pastry case around the fig.
If you want to call it pastry.
It's not.
Don't insult Keebler, man.
I'm gonna insult Keebler.
I think they make fig Newtons. I don't know. This is the most complex nose, but it wants to sting in a way that I'm surprised by.
Interesting.
Hannah, I'm used to disagreeing with you. Dad, I'm not used to disagreeing with you. So I'm disagreeing with both of you. I'm really struggling on getting flavors out of this. I get maybe that pastry element that you guys are thinking, but I'm shoving my nose into this glass and I am not getting burned.
Do you
What about sugars?
At all. Sugars, maybe like fine white cane sugar, but
Huh.
I mean, but beyond that, I'm just kind of struggling here. I don't like fig Newtons. You guys might have caught note of that when I said that I would happily insult Keebler. Sorry, Keebler. But I do not like fig Newtons. No. So I don't really know if this really tastes like fig Newtons.
I haven't tasted it. This is just what I'm picking up on the smell. I think there's also a brininess there.
What I'm getting out of this, we spoke about this for the last one, is that watery feel. This is a very fresh.
On the nose?
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm getting water. Like, fresh water. Maybe some of the herbal notes. I don't know if my olfactory sensors are on a different playing field than you guys. We're not on the same page, people.
So let's get back to our behind the scenes mechanics, specifically to the barrel. In case you guys haven't noticed a little bit, I kind of nerd out when we talk about barrels. Maturation, how wheat interacts with the barrel. As we found out, wheat brings less bitterness and less aggressive grain character to the barrel. There are three primary variables which factor into barrel maturation. The first is barrel char. And typically we're talking in terms of a number 3 char or a number 4 char. Number 3 chars approximately a 35-second burn. On the inside it provides a lighter char, more toasting than charring. The pros, it's a lower tannin extraction, so when the liquid is touching the barrels it's not going to pull the tannins out of the barrels quite as much, giving it a little smoother mouthfeel. It helps preserve the nuances in the grain and the yeast flavors. It allows the wheat's soft character to shine, and can typically offer more floral and fruity honey notes. The cons of the lower barrel char, it tends to provide less caramelization of the oak sugars, which means potentially less vanilla and caramel flavoring, and it may limit depth or richness in longer aging. And maybe, Laura, this is what's happening here because it can lead to a thinner profile. Number 4 char could be 55 seconds, and it will look like an alligator skin, common in most bourbons. It allows for more aggressive extraction of flavors from the barrel. More pronounced caramel, vanilla, oak spice. It may give wheated bourbon even more backbone. It increases flavor extraction, especially with longer aging. Cons, you can risk overpowering the wheat's subtlety, especially in really young whiskeys. So maybe a heavier barrel char is good if you're going to age it longer. If it's really short-lived in the barrel, you may get some bitter tannins out of it, and some people say wheaters can become dry or oaky. The second variable in barrel maturation is barrel entry proof of the distillate. Lower versus higher. Lower barrel entry proof, that 103 to 110 proof, means less dilution in the final product before bottling. The pros, it tends to result in a softer, creamier mouthfeel, emphasizes grain character and sweetness, helps retain the fruity esters and the lactones, the vanilla, the coconut, traditional in many wheated bourbons. The cons, it requires a lot more barrel space. So if you're only putting liquid into the barrel at 110 proof, you're going to need a lot more barrels to get more product. They may lack the intensity or spice compared to higher entry spirits and can age slower, meaning more barrel time. Higher barrel entry proof extracts more oak compounds, leading to bolder, spicier, toastier flavors. Maybe that's why that Bernheim was a little more in your face. It lends to more efficient aging in large quantities, and it provides a little more wood character. The cons, it can suppress grain nuance, and higher barrel entry proofs may bring out a little more stringency, and may require a little more water dilution at bottling and potentially reduce complexity. It does run the risk of losing some of the softness that the wheat brings.
This is very interesting because you brought up like this one might require more water dilution, and you had mentioned coconut. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden I was like, oh, that makes sense, and I smelled the glass and I was like, yeah, that's coconut. So I think for me, I might be a little bit more affected than you guys with what's going on in the behind the scenes sort of thing. There's more water going into it, so the flavors are going to be muted, like more so than not. And then, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the third variable in the aging process, barrel aging time. Short versus long. Short aging, 3 to 6 years, especially relevant for a wheat whiskey and younger wheated bourbons. Pros, highlights the grain, allows people to taste the mash bill, retains light, sweet, fresh elements, maybe honey, maybe apple, maybe even bread dough. I think we all made comments about bread dough or baking elements.
And it helps that we have some dough here. We have some bread here.
Absolutely.
And one thing I do want to say about this particular one, to me it's like a chameleon. It's blending perfectly with what I'm eating.
So longer aging, that 7 to 15 years, think Pappy, Weller 12, Larceny wheated bourbons and so on. Pros, it allows the wheat's sweetness to mingle deeply with rich oak undertones, maybe getting some of that toffee or nutmeg or cocoa. It enhances the viscosity, makes it feel deeper with more of a pleasant mouthfeel. But the cons here, the wheat flavor can become soft or muted, can maybe even be seen as flat or over oaked. Evaporation increases cost, in other words, the angel's share as liquid evaporates from the barrel, and sometimes the finishes can be dry or overly woody. Both of you, Alora especially, you've been tasting. Tell me what you think.
I'm going to stick with my previous statement and say that it is like a chameleon. I am getting that fresh sort of watery element to it. I got a little bit of coconut. I got coconut on the smell as well. Thank you very much, Hannah. I don't know. I think I'm just more affected by what's going on in the behind the scenes, and I'm agreeing more with the cons than I am with the pros. It's, I think, great to have with bread, but on its own, I'm not sure if I'd go for it.
Oh, I would. I think that at $40-ish, this is a nice one. It's a bit of a cherry bomb for me though, and which I love. And that's what I get out of it. I don't get any coconut, I get cherries. I love having whiskeys that are dominant in the fruit variety, especially when they do come forward strong with the cherry. That being said, I didn't really pick up a whole lot of cherry on the nose. And part of my own weird criteria or expectation, I should say, when I have a whiskey is I do want whatever I'm getting on the nose to translate into whatever I get on the palate. I didn't really get that here. It was, I don't know if any of you saw me when I took my first sip, it was like whiplash. I was not expecting the sweetness that I got out of this palette. The cherries, there's a lot of simple syrup here too. I don't want to say that it's a full-blown caramel, but there is a simple syrup. There's a little bit of vanilla. I still get some baking components there. I think it wants to bite, but it doesn't have the power to. I really look at, knowing this one is an MGP product and a 4-grain, I look at this one now very much as this is the little sister to the Lux Row 4-grain.
Oh, wow.
This is very much the little sister to it. There's less complexity, very, very simple, but very approachable, because that Lux Row, that one is coming out full force, complexity, flavors, and I'm pretty sure it's a higher proof as well.
It is.
So I don't remember the exact breakdown of the mash bill, whether it's heavier on the rye than on the wheat for that second ingredient there, but you can tell these two are related.
Very interesting. I never would have put the two together. I'm sitting here, for me on the palate, it sips soft, but finishes warm. The palate and the finish almost don't go together. As I sip it, it's easy to sip. I can hold it in my mouth. But as soon as I swallow, all of a sudden my throat gets warm, and I'm thinking, wow, it's kind of a nice surprise. I'm not picking up any fruit. I have to say, I'm not. I do get the herbal essence that I mentioned early on. I do get the dark sweets. I'm almost thinking I'm going to either a dark honey or maybe even a very light molasses. I'm getting some wood element, maybe char, but I'm getting a woodiness to it. I like it.
All three of us have said something completely different on this palette. Completely different.
I will agree that it has sweet notes. And Hannah, I suppose I will agree with you in that it's a simple syrup and not like a maple or dark syrup of any sort. Just kind of like the one that you might put on a pastry or something.
I'm just getting more dark elements than anything else.
I don't get any fruit. I get sweet. I would say that this, if I had to compare it to a beverage, I'd say it's like coconut water to me.
Wow.
So it's very different from what
not.
you guys are getting.
Yeah, but it's,
Well, I'm telling you, I'm not getting any of what you're saying besides the syrup.
so interesting.
With bourbon, guys, it's okay to disagree with those closest to you.
Or even those far away.
Or even those far away. You can have your own opinions.
Let's
We are
get
having
back
our own.
to wrap up our barrel discussion. Some might argue that wheat ages more gracefully than rye. Wheat is a lower tannin grain. It offers less extraction of bitterness from the charred oak. Softer compounds can be amplified, building caramel, butterscotch, and vanilla notes in the barrel. Now, I'm not getting caramel out of any of these. And I'm certainly
No.
not getting butterscotch out of any of these.
No.
But I do sense vanilla out of everyone.
I think it's
I
an
agree with
whoever argues wheat ages more gracefully than rye, I don't think I agree with that at all.
Oxygen in the barrel enhances wheat's fruitiness and floral top notes. Maybe that's where I'm getting the herbalness, and maybe that's where you're getting the cherries, Hannah.
Maybe.
However, wheat's lightness can make older offerings feel flat, if not even overaged. The sweet spot is 7 to 12 years. Instead of caramel and vanilla, bitter oak and dried out finish tends to come out.
I'm trying to think though of a wheated whiskey or wheated bourbon that we've had that's fit within that age gap.
The only one that we have is the Weller 12-year.
And that is a phenomenal bottle. I can't say anything
No,
except that on
and-
that one. But I think that wheat is a really delicate flavor, and the longer you age it, the more it's going to degrade. And it loses itself exclusively to the barrel, and you really are only getting that out of it. I don't know if maybe that's what we're all trying to beat around the bush a little bit with the Penelope. We don't know the age statement on it, but I'm wondering if it's getting close to a point where it's wanting to age out.
Maybe. It's hard to say. Well, before we go on, any final thoughts about the Penelope?
I still really like it. I think all three of these have been really nice. And I think that they're all approachable. I think that the Makers is probably the most beginner friendly out of those three. But if you're ready to kick it up and try something a little off the wall and new, then the Penelope might be one that you reach for.
Go for that one.
And then if you're wanting to expand and do an experiment with another distillery, grab the Bernheim and go on a Heaven Hill journey. I think the Bernheim would be a really good entry to the Heaven Hill Funk without blowing out your taste buds if you're not used to spice and high proof yet.
We're going to go on. We're going to go back to Heaven Hill, and we're going to bring in our final pour. It is an older one in our stocks. Hannah opened it last episode on a whim.
No regrets.
So Larceny Barrel Proof Batch C923. Laura loves her Larceny.
I do. I got a lot of personal memories with it. I think it's the first whiskey that I fell in love with, to be honest.
You were drinking the small batch.
Yeah, but
that's
I mean,
a different
I just wanted to explore the Larceny line after that. It's got a very special place in my heart.
Yep. So the C923, what does it mean? C.
This shows that this is the third release, and it came out in September of 2023.
Perfect.
Think about when you get your bread from your store. Sometimes they'll have the colored things that tie the plastic together to make sure that the bread doesn't go bad. That color signifies what month it was made in, so that's a good way for you to approximate when it's going to expire. So
and nobody knows that, so you just taught them a new thing, I guarantee.
all right, well, now you guys know. We're all here to learn things, people.
Our category here is a barrel proof wheated bourbon. Company's Heaven Hill, as we mentioned, out of Louisville, Kentucky. It's made in the same distillery as the Bernheim original we had, ESP K1. Our mash bill is completely different. We're at 68% corn, 20% wheat, and 12% malt barley.
So this isn't technically a wheated whiskey.
It's a wheated bourbon.
It's a wheated bourbon.
Yeah.
Our barrel char is number 3. Barrel entry proof is quite high, 125 maximum allowed. It's aged in open air rick houses in Bardstown, Kentucky in Nelson County. There's no age statement here, but it's estimated to be between 6 and 8 years. Our ABV, the biggest one of the bunch, 63.2% alcohol or 126.4 proof. MSRP on this one, this is an older one, so I'm going to do MSRPs of newer releases here. Priced in the $60 to $70 range. Nationwide, you'll probably find it around $100. Fair prices are in that $80 to $90 range. If you find it at $70, it's a value. That is what MSRP is. Pick it up. Bottle size is at 750 milliliters. So
it's our most expensive one, then.
It is the most expensive one of the bunch. It is the highest proof of the bunch. Rarest of the bunch. Go. What do you think on the nose?
I like it a lot better than the Penelope. I am getting more than water, which is good. I almost want to say that there's a bit of an anise seed in it. And I'm not particularly fond of anise. I'll put caraway seeds and fennel seeds in my rye bread, and it kind of is similar to that anise seed. My uncle, whenever he makes his rye bread, he puts legitimate anise seed in it. This, I'm getting a little bit of that anise licorice sort of thing going on. I'm also getting caramel.
I'm going on record right now. I'm not getting that.
No.
Well, that's fine. I disagreed with you both. Now it's your turn to disagree with me, probably again. And yeah, I just like it more. I'm getting more baking elements. I'm not sure exactly yet about the spices, but I get caramel and I get that anise seed.
Definitely caramel.
Definitely Heaven Hill. I still have a little bit of Bernheim left in my other glass, and you can definitely tell. That's the same family all day. That's the same family. The spice is there. There's a bready tone to it. This one, because of the higher proof, there's an emphasis on the spice. I get more of a black pepper element as opposed to the white pepper that I had on the Bernheim. Despite being 126-ish proof, it's still not stinging my nose, which I thought that it would. I appreciate that it isn't, but it wouldn't have been unwelcome if it did.
I'm liking the smell of this.
It's a really good smell. We did have it out last episode on a very spontaneous whim to talk about proof and wheat coming into the discussion when we were trying out wheated whiskeys with different types of bread. We were doing a whiskey pairing. If you haven't listened to that episode, certainly go back and check that one out, because that one I think was really enlightening.
Yeah, go on a chaotic journey hearing me hosting that show.
I get a little bit of raisins here. The darkness is here.
There's depth.
There's a lot of depth
There's
here.
a lot of depth.
It's welcome. It's welcome.
It's a good nose.
I do get some cherry as well. More on the Bing and Rainier cherries.
And I don't get cherries at all.
So our structural differences between wheat, rye, and barley heavy mash bills. In the ryes, you typically get spices, herbal notes, peppery bites, often hits mid-palate and finishes with a force. In barley, you tend to pick up nuttiness, a roastedness, maybe cocoa. It adds a little bit of complexity and structure, but for wheat, people tend to say it's softer, it's sweeter, it's more in the front of the palate, and sometimes can be described as round, or I don't know if I would say this, but pillowy.
I said silky, which is maybe a close-ish similarity.
Possible.
I get silky more than I get the word pillowy. And what they mean by like more front of the palate, we've referenced this before, but we have a lot of taste buds that are very reactant to sweet notes that are on the tip of the tongue. So the front of the palate is able to pick up more of the sweet flavors of a food, of a drink, whatever.
And wheat doesn't tend to push the ethanol perception as much as a rye does. When we're sipping this now or smelling this now, I'm really not getting a lot of ethanol.
No.
Yes, our bottle's been open for a while. I think it is a softer element.
Yeah.
It doesn't smell like something 120 plus proof.
No.
In wheated bourbons, the corn sweetness plus the wheat's gentleness typically creates a soft, rich profile. So let's get into the taste here. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say, Laura.
Well, this is my first sip, and I like it a lot. You know, you mentioned that barley thing having more cocoa. Getting a little bit of cocoa in this, on both the aroma and the palate. I will say that it is the strongest mouthfeel out of the three that we've had.
And should be.
Four, yeah.
Out of the four that we had, yes. And I am getting those sweeter notes. I'm getting more baking elements. I get a little bit of caramel. I don't get the cherries as much, but the aniseed that I got in the nose, I don't really get anymore. But I think that this one would be, I mean, I just love Larceny, guys. So of course I'm going to go for this all day, every day. How about you guys?
I also really like this. I think that the sweet element is there. I was kind of surprised. I'm struggling to remember exactly what I said about it when we had it last time. But
Across the board, we all liked it.
we all liked it. That much I know for sure. But this time around, and if I'm going completely against what I said before, then this is about to be really embarrassing. But I think there's some florals here. They're soft though. They're not dark florals. I'm not really getting a ton of darkness out of this, although I'm getting a lot of richness out of this. I think there's some honey in here. The baking element's still there. I am now getting a little bit of caramel. The vanilla's there. The oak is certainly there. Now this one is the one that's the most complex out of the bunch. The alcohol isn't as aggressive as I thought it was going to be, which, you know, take that however you want to.
It's definitely there.
It's definitely there. It's the hottest one out of the four, obviously. But it's not something that I would think, oh gosh, it's going to try to give me a hug. I'm just not getting that vibe from it at all. I think that it's really an entertaining pour, and I really like it. Maybe some darkness will come out of it the further I get into the glass, but right now, surface level, there's some light richness going on.
I'm going to say ditto to everything both of you said. I'm getting the flavors, I'm getting the nuances. You know, Hannah, you said floral. I don't know so much floral. There might be some floral elements, but that herbalness is still there.
Yeah.
I mean, the oak has had an effect on this. The aging process, you know, whatever it might be, 6 to 8 years, it's just right in that wheelhouse. The darkness, yeah, there's some dark fruits there. Dark, dried fruits, maybe. I love this. I'd be hard-pressed to sit down and drink a whole bottle of it.
Yeah.
But, wow, just sipping a sip here and a sip there.
I get like caramel apples.
Oh, yes.
There's like caramel apples in that.
There are some apples here.
Yeah.
Have you guys tried it with the bread?
No.
Yes, I have.
I haven't.
And the bread just says, you know what? I don't know what you're doing to me, but do it again. Do it again. This is really good.
I think that where I said for the Bernheim, they're more of a marriage of flavors between the bread and the whiskey. I think the whiskey elevates the bread flavor a little bit more because
Brings out the salt.
yeah,
Yep.
salt and sweet. It's a match made in heaven. They've
Yeah.
always gone together.
Yep.
But
I think you
Yeah.
need the salt to get the sweet,
yeah,
and you need the sweet to get the savory. Absolutely. So closing thoughts, takeaways. One might ask, if somebody doesn't like soft whiskey, should they avoid wheat?
No.
no, because they're so versatile. I mean, we had different thoughts across the entire board of what we just had in terms of the whiskey. We all really liked them. I mean, I was a little more hesitant against the Penelope, but they're not bad. They all have something to offer. They're all so versatile, and they all are standalones, I think. I mean, maybe the Larceny Barrel Proof and the Bernheim are more closely related, but the two of them can stand on their own 2 feet just fine.
I would say, sticking my neck out here, that all 4 of these aren't what I would call soft whiskeys. On the same token, they are not in-your-face whiskeys either. They're easy to drink. That Bernheim, you could sit and just enjoy the day. Sit by the pool. Sit by the pool and enjoy what's going on around you. The Maker's Mark, classic bourbon. Everybody should have a bottle of that on their shelf. You don't reach for it every day, but it should be there. The Penelope, it's a new friend. I see that as a new friend. I still need to get to know it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I do too, honestly.
And then, wow, this Larceny, what a way to finish. What a way
Yeah.
to finish.
I think that one, if you say that you don't like soft whiskey, I'm confused. That's a strange concept to me, not liking a soft whiskey, because that's all in the mouthfeel, and traditionally people really love mouthfeels that are soft, viscousy, silky, oily, all of those really lovely words that we like to use. But even if that isn't right up your alley, I still think that making a decision to avoid wheated whiskeys is don't do that.
Yeah.
Just don't do that.
You're doing yourself a disservice.
There's so much out there, and even though there might be 1 or 2 that would fall into that category most definitely of being soft, you'll find some that do punch a little higher than the belt, like the Larceny Barrel Proof, maybe even a little bit like the Bernheim too. I think that there's a lot of variety here, and there's always a lot on sample shelves, and the whole thing is a journey. You gotta do the journey.
Perhaps I said it last time we did an episode like this, where it was about rye, and we said that, or we tried to experiment with the whole notion of, is rye spicy? Well, I think last season when we did that episode, I said ryes can be spicy, but not all ryes are. Well, I'm going to say that about this. Wheated whiskey may be soft, but not all wheated whiskeys are indeed soft. They can stand on their own 2 feet just fine.
Well, good discussion. Really good discussion. Let's move on to this fortnight in whiskey. I've got 3 quick stories here and then a couple of whiskeys to search for. My first one, I'm going to tie it right into this episode. William LaRue Weller, the man that changed bourbon forever. The name William LaRue Weller is revered in American whiskey history. Weller is widely credited as being one of the first Americans to promote whiskey with wheat in its mash bill instead of the rye. Wheated bourbon was smoother back in those days. It was simply a softer whiskey. Weller was born in Kentucky in 1825, and from his youth, he was aware the state had established itself as the center of American whiskey production. Distilling was booming all around him. He began his career in the whiskey business in the mid-1840s, when whiskey was sold directly from barrels. At that time, quality control was pretty inconsistent. Weller distinguished himself as being a merchant with a focus on the consistency and, more so, on the honesty. He sold by integrity. Weller founded W.L. Weller & Sons in Louisville, Kentucky in 1849, and he was not a distiller. He was primarily a whiskey wholesaler and bottler. He selected barrels from other distillers and sold the whiskey under his name with a guarantee of quality. His early advertising slogan included the line, "Genuine, unadulterated, and true to label." That's a pretty cool statement as far as I'm concerned. Most bourbons of the day had rye as the secondary grain, and Weller believed there was room for a different kind of whiskey. He drew upon his knowledge of grain chemistry, and he began sourcing his stocks with wheated bourbon. The new whiskey was creamier with a softer texture and a sweeter flavor than the rye. It was approachable for new drinkers, but complex enough for the seasoned enthusiasts. While Weller may not have been the first to experiment with wheat, he was one of the earliest and most influential champions. Weller's bourbons has gained a loyal following, particularly in southern and midwestern states. And in 1893, at the age of 18, some guy by the name of Julian P. Van Winkle Sr. became a salesman for the W.L. Weller & Sons company. Pappy Van Winkle. Weller's contributions to the American whiskey extend well beyond his brand. By championing wheated bourbon and focusing on quality assurance, he set the standards and influenced generations of distillers. His collaborative spirit created a legacy of whiskey making which still defines some of today's most iconic brands. My second story, one of America's biggest whiskey distillers has seen its sales plummet. Okay, we just had some Penelope. In a previous episode, we've reported news that MGP, one of the biggest distilleries in the country, would be scaling back its whiskey production this year. They've done that. The scaling back was to put the focus back on their own brands rather than farming out and doing other products. In late July, just here a month ago, the company reported a drop in sales at the end of Q2 by 24%.
Whoa.
That is a massive drop. MGP is a massive distillery in Indiana. It supplies a lot of whiskey to brands that don't have their own distilleries or hadn't for a long time. MGP's contract distilling business has faced some tough times. They've been producing for brands like Templeton or Bullet or Whistlepig or Pinhook and Redemption. And there are countless smaller, newer brands which can come on board as well. I think we did something about MGP once before. I wrote an article about it. They can do as few as 2 barrels for a company, which is pretty bold.
Yeah.
Over the past couple of years, more options for non-distilling producers are coming online, including Bardstown Bourbon Company, Southern Distilling, Middle West out of Ohio, and then the new one down in Kentucky called Whiskey House that does nothing but contract distilling. Add this to young people are drinking less.
We can't afford it.
And the threats of tariffs are making a lot of companies feel really jittery. MGP has had different outcomes across its 3 business lines. Distilling Solutions, the contract distilling company, sales are down there nearly 50%. That could be a combination of economy for sure, but it also could be them making the decision to scale back. Their branded spirits, their in-house spirits, branded under the Ross and Squibb name, include George Remus and Remus Gatsbury Reserve and Penelope. George Remus, their sales are down about 5%, but the Penelope bourbon is up by 1%. And then the final solution is Ingredient Solutions, food-grade wheat proteins and starches. That's the only sector to be showing a tremendous positive growth, and it's increasing by 5% even in this economy. Industry insiders say alcohol sales are up slightly overall, but people are shifting to cheaper options. They're not buying the premium bourbon because the supply is simply too high and it's priced way out of market reach. Mm-hmm. Producers are working through the stocks, production levels are coming down, distilleries are shuttering or taking time outs. We read something that Diageo here a while back is shutting their production down for the summer. People say that I've just got too much. My guess is it's going to be a tough next 6 to 12 months. With less bourbon being produced, all of a sudden demand's going to go back up because there'll be less options available. And for the next story, I wanted to revisit something we've talked about in the past. I went back and looked. It was episode 1 of series 4. Rye grain from an 1878 shipwreck opens the door to rare whiskey revival efforts. Now, I gotta say, for our family, we enjoy learning about shipwrecks and things of that nature.
Yeah.
To remind everyone, back in 1878, a wooden schooner named the James R. Bentley sank in a storm after hitting a shoal in Lake Huron. All the crew members were rescued. There were no loss of life. But the Bentley has sat on the bottom of Lake Huron for 150 years, along with its cargo, which are the remnants of the rye it was shipping. Michigan distiller Chad Munger, founder and CEO of Mammoth Distilling, has teamed up with scientists to bring this long-gone grain back to life. The shipwreck is a rarity in the Great Lakes. It's privately owned. How that came to be, I'm not quite sure, but it's a legal quirk that has made the recovery possible. His team has retrieved samples of the rye from the ship's hold. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to get it to germinate yet, but he's calling this new grain Bentley Rye. Munger's intent is to restore Michigan to its role as North America's rye capital.
Interesting.
150 years ago, Michigan was the rye-growing capital of North America. Michigan is where one came to buy rye, but Prohibition wiped out the whole rye industry in Michigan.
Could it help redouble the efforts to kind of restore Detroit?
It could do everything for it. Mammoth Distilling is no stranger to this type of effort. They also helped revive another old grain, Rawson rye, thanks to a U.S. Department of Agriculture seed bank that was in Idaho. The company
that's
obtained
us.
some of the seeds and germinated them back to existence. Our farmers are now growing Rawson rye, and they're making whiskeys out
That's
of that
cool.
particular rye. However, as noted, the Bentley rye has been a little bit trickier to germinate. Eric Olson, a wheat breeding and genetics professor at the Michigan State University, has been working to sequence the genome of the rye's DNA.
That'd be the way to do it.
Essentially figure out the instructions on a molecular level to make the rye.
So he's been very methodical about going to do this. Olson has called the Bentley rye variety a historical treasure. It gives us a snapshot of the exact variety of rye being grown in the Great Lakes region back in the late 1800s. Olson has reported the project has made some foundational progress. Over the past several months, he's been growing 269 varieties of rye, and now he's going to go about extracting the DNA and sequencing pieces of the rye chromosomes so that he can find out how all of those align with this Bentley rye. He's genetically making this stuff.
Yeah.
Which is
Pretty
kind of cool.
But reverse engineering it by taking established rye grain that he's growing and comparing it directly to the old and trying to figure out, catch the difference.
And
are
you
the
hit on
differences?
exactly what they're doing. They're using classical plant breeding methods to come up with this rye, this Bentley rye chromosomes that they can bring back together. Olson said the process should conclude in the next 4 to 5 years. I can imagine the amount of trial and error of putting together DNA sequences. You get 2 that match, or 1, and then you've got 3 over here, and they're just putting it all together.
You gotta match all those A, C, G's, and what?
Wow.
Teas.
T's, thank you.
Mammoth Distilling Chad Munger noted, "This is much bigger than a cool shipwreck story. Rye makes the difference in terms of flavor character, and this is the first step in invigorating a whole segment of the Michigan economy."
Yeah.
Very true.
You said that about Detroit, Laura. That very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So a couple new bottles. So clear out your bunker a little bit.
Or just add to it. Whichever one you want to do.
Rebel Bourbon announces the annual release of its highly acclaimed Rebel 10-year single barrel. The annual release of the Rebel 10-year single barrel bourbon is on store shelves now. With this being a single barrel release, each barrel is going to be a little bit unique. Rebel 10-year single barrel bourbon vital stats. Master distiller is John Rimp. Who knows John Rimp? Blood Oath.
Oh, okay.
He's the same guy that does Blood Oath. Mash bill is 68% corn, 20% wheat, and 12% malt barley. It's said to be the same that they've been using since 1849, which is pretty bizarre to me. ABV, 50% or 100 proof. Pretty limited allocation of 2,600 750 milliliter 6-pack cases. So I don't know how to do the math real quick, but 3 times 6 is
18.
18. So we got 18,000 bottles out there. Is that what the math is?
Thereabouts. Maybe a little
Yeah.
less.
MSRP, $99 or $100. Distiller tasting notes: on the nose, vanilla, dark fruits, followed by subtle citrus and oak. Traces of caramel and citrus on the palate, and velvety smooth with just a little hint of spice. All those things kind of lined up with what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My second news story about bottles you should be looking for is actually for 2 bottles. One of America's best single malt makers has just dropped new whiskey aged in craft beer cases. Although the American single malt category just got its official designation this past December, there are distilleries which have been making this style of whiskey for many years. One of those, founded in 2010, is Westland, a distillery in Seattle, Washington. It was acquired by Remy Cointreau in 2017. Westland has released a pair of new whiskeys, one finished in craft beer barrels and the other in wine barrels. Westland is known for experimenting with the concept of terroir, making whiskeys on the Geriana line. The Geriana line is aged in Quercus geriana, a type of oak native to the Pacific Northwest. Other expressions included in their Outpost range include Solum, which is made using locally sourced peated malt, and Colere, which is meant to highlight the effects of specific barley strains. The two new whiskeys are part of the distillery's Cask Exploration Series. The Cask Exploration Series explores collaboration with local brewers and winemakers of the Pacific Northwest. The beer cask finish American Single Malt batch number 2 is made from a mash bill of Westland's Signature 5 malt and Washington peat malt, aged for 6 to 9 years, initially in new American oak, bourbon, and rye barrels, and then it was put into a series of beer casks for a secondary maturation. Those include Stout Porter, Brown Ale, Imperial Munich Lager, and Foundry Ale. It's bottled at 46% ABV or 92 proof with an MSRP of $75. On the palate, it's said to have malt powder, coffee cake, dried red apple, and orange marmalade.
Okay.
The wine cask finished American Single Malt batch number 2 is made with that same Signature 5 malt mash bill, aged 5 to 9 years in second fill American oak, then finished with Tempranillo wine, Washington Red Blend, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, and Merlot casks. Also bottled at 46% ABV, 92 proof, with the same MSRP of $75. Palate on this one is said to be toasted almonds, cooked plum, cinnamon roll, and a little dark chocolate.
Well, Laura would probably really like that one if
I don't
that's
know.
true.
Maybe. We'll see.
So these are just a few of the latest releases. As always, to learn more about these and many more offerings, as well as other news stories that we didn't talk about this time, go to Whiskey for the Ages episode archive page on our website, and there you'll find links to all of our episodes, their corresponding news pages, as well as citations for the reporting news sources. There you go. Is wheat whiskey soft?
It depends. Yeah.
It depends.
The miraculous conclusion at the end of all of this is it depends.
It's all about who's making it, the style they do, what they're doing with it, where it's coming from,
And your own palate,
and your
Yeah.
own palate.
which we
Because
learned.
clearly I disagreed vehemently with what these two were saying about Penelope. But maybe I need to give Penelope a chance. I don't know.
So that was a fun episode, and we still have more planned for the rest of this season. We've got some regular features that we always like to do, distillery and proof spotlights for whiskey. We've got more whiskey reviews coming up. We have officially picked our guest who's going to be on this season. And
We're really excited.
We're really, really excited. This is very new. We're going to dive into a whole new world, and we're excited to bring you guys along with us for it. And then, of course, I'm going to be doing another archaeology episode. I absolutely loved doing that last time. You know I'm going to do it again. That'll have more history planned to share with us. And then, as always, we're going to be sprinkling in some tips and tricks that we've learned along our own journeys as we enjoy our pours.
Absolutely. So please be sure to send us your comments and subscribe to the show. Subscribers get update notifications whenever we post something new. So you guys are first out on the line. And then you also help us move up in Google rankings if you choose to subscribe to us. And it helps us be able to come up with future content. And we listen to you guys. So if you guys have any ideas on what we can do, what other experiments we can do with whiskey or food pairings or history, anything, we are more than happy to hear what you have to say.
And so ends another episode. Please join us for our next. Of course, you subscribers are going to know when it comes out. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.